Good day, folks. Welcome to the 8th session of this program dealing with managing VAT in big corporate environments. Now, unfortunately for the tax managers, sorry guys, we are still busy with what are the competencies that tax managers should have in the modern business environment. We're taking this a little bit further today, and we'll look at some of those key competencies that would be ideal. Now, we accept that all of that is hardly ever going to be in a single person, but those are the focus areas and the development areas that tax managers should consider, or what you should consider when you appoint a tax manager or a tax executive in an organization. Now, the first thing is the ability to think in systems, system thinking. Now, that doesn't come naturally to most people. You've got the right brain people that everything goes and everything fits into a bigger picture, and you have the left brain people where everything has to fit into a tiny little box, and you build your systems through separate boxes. Now, a tax manager should be able to marry those two, and on the one side be in a position to know that the detail is looked after, but also that the bigger picture within the organization emerges with regards to your indirect tax function. So system thinking, critical, but not always something that comes naturally to technically inclined people. Then you have to be able to manage your human resources. Now, one person can't do all the tax functions, just cannot be done. And how do you manage that process within the organization? And we talked about communication and all those good things and where you position your responsibility and accountability. So that is a critical element within the management of a tax function in an organization. Then manage information. That's a critical element, and we will look at that in a little bit more detail just now. And it's also dealt more completely in the manual that comes with this program. Clear and effective communication, we've talked about that. There mustn't be uncertainty about where the buck stops. And we've talked about policy, we've talked about procedures that support the policy and so forth and so on, that the tax manager should be able to bring to the table. Alignment with information technology strategy. So you have an information technology strategy in the organization. The tax function shouldn't be something separate from that. The tax function should be something that's aligned to it, that talks to the larger system and generates information or extracts information from the larger system. It is a disaster often if you have separate tax systems that do their own stuff, and when you try and reconcile that to main operations, you see that there's just a gap there, which is a disaster waiting to happen. Then the execution of information technology strategy. So on the one side you need to align it, on the other side it needs to be executed. So let's just have a quick look at what that execution may entail. So you can't start with do it all in day one. It's a process you need to understand. You start with a very basic information technology strategy that says, this is the critical information that I need. The system must provide this information, otherwise the system is inappropriate for this organization. Then you start applying the information. So when I get information, what do I do with that information? So when you apply the information, how do you apply it and what is done with that information? And that comes into the management side. So how do you manage that information? It doesn't help if you have a huge overload of information and you've got dashboards all over the place and red lights flickering and green lights and all sorts of things, but you do not know what to do with that. Then you've got a wonderful system which is not going to add anything meaningful to your organization. So how do you manage that? And then the next step is you go into automation. So now you know what information you need, you know how you want to apply it, you know how you want to manage it. Ideally, that entire process should be automated and information should go directly to the source where it needs to be dealt with. And then monitoring. So if you've done all of those good things, the tax manager or the tax executive should only monitor. And that's where the dashboards come in. If you've got a wonderful dashboard of feedback, that feedback should be there only for your information, and if there is a red flag, a huge red flag jumping up, then it requires your action. But the tax executive should not get involved in the detailed day-to-day operations of tax if that can be avoided. Okay. So that gives us an idea of what the tax manager should be able to do, where their focus should be. We've now spent a few sessions looking at how they should be measured and so forth and so on. In the next session, we're getting a little bit more practical. We're going to look at how do you set up your systems to provide the necessary information. What does that hierarchy look like? We hope you're finding this of value and be seeing forward to seeing you in the next session. From me, Christo Teron, checking out for Tradetaxplus Management Services.